it's Jennifer from Flux. Welcome back to the last video of our Summer of Dishcloths crochet along. Now the other day we finished up the very last dishcloth up here, the super stitchy dishcloth. So every week for the month of July and August I've been sharing a new dishcloth pattern and I have them all laid out here. It's really fun. I had fun before I turned on the camera kind of spreading all these out and seeing them all together because I've been making them and sort of setting them aside, but to see them all together as a collection is really fun. So we're going to go through each one to sort of recap. Now if you've missed any of these dishcloths here, the link down below for the directory can be found, and that is a link to the blog, and there's a list of every single dishcloth link so you can go to every single pattern that you like. So I also would love for you to comment below which ones you made. Did you make all of them? Did you have a favorite? What colors were you using? I want to hear all about your dishcloths as well. Also, when you share your dishcloth, which many of you have been doing, use the hashtag FiberFluxCal to share your work. It's been a lot of fun to see all the different color combinations people have been using. So without further ado, let's get started. The first dishcloth we made is down here. These were the scrub edge dishcloths, and I made some different color combinations. Now we use the Scrubby Smoothie for all of our dishcloths, and this one I used a different scrubby. It's called Scrubby Cotton, and it has these like textured little strands that come off of it. And this was a classic granny square, and I did some different color combinations, and it really made a nice set. I also wanted to mention before we keep going that if you haven't made these but you want to keep making them, these tutorials and videos will be up forever so you can refer to them anytime. And as we're heading into fall, these make wonderful quick little hostess gifts for housewarmings or Thanksgiving or what have you. And also as we head farther into the holiday season, these make great gifts as well. So this I sort of made as a set with the different color combinations, so you can gift these as a set as well. So moving right along, these were the C2C or corner to corner color block dishcloths. So I selected 3 colors and we kind of did different combinations of these, and we worked from the bottom corner here outward, switched colors, and then brought it back in and finished it off with a hanging loop. As a side note, these have a hanging loop as well. So these were the C2C color block dishcloths. The next dishcloth in our lineup was probably the most fun to make and unique. This was called the Playing in the Grass dishcloth. Now I used a strand held double for this one. I used the Scrubby Smoothie, this green cotton that you can see here. But I also used a yarn called Scrubby Sparkle, and I held them together, and that created this really textured, it feels like artificial grass. It's really became a very interesting fabric to work with. So we just kept the stitches very simple because of the unique yarn. And I made these 1 round flowers to attach as appliques to sort of look like little blooms in the grass. So this was a very fun dishcloth to make, the Playing in the Grass dishcloth. And again, all of these can be found at the link below in the directory that I created. The week after that, I changed it up a little bit more and did the Circle of Triangles dishcloth. Now this was some granny triangles, and we used the join as you go technique to connect them all together, and then I created a nice little edge to frame it all in. I chose 2 colors. Some of you chose other colors, more colors, and one of you did all 1 color. So it was a really fun experimentation in color and how the colors all interact together. So the Circle of Triangles dishcloth. The week after that, we did the Color Flip dishcloth. Now we used some post stitches and 2 colors this time to create a unique front and back. They're very different from one another. And the post stitches also created this really interesting ridge, which also lent itself to having like a nice scrubbing texture for your dishcloth. And it was a really interesting 3D sort of, it almost looks like it's sewn together with a running stitch. So this had some really interesting texture, and I called it the Color Flip because when you flip it, the colors look completely different with one another. Okay, so that was that one, the color flip. The next one we worked on was the Connect the Dots dishcloth. Now I really loved the color scheme of this. This is just so summery looking. It almost looks like a bird's eye view of some beach umbrellas or something. But we did a classic granny square, and then we learned how to do some polka dots. So the pink small polka dots were single crochets, the medium polka dots were half double crochets, and then the large orange polka dots were double crochets, and each one of these was 2 rounds. So this was easy, simple stitches, but lots of different basic stitches to learn, and then we sewed them all on as appliques. So Connect the Dots dishcloth. After that, we did the Maui Blossom dishcloth. This was a beautiful dishcloth, and I know a lot of you have mentioned before I talk about this one that some of the dishcloths you enjoyed making so much and really loved the way they looked that you didn't really want to use them as dishcloths, which is perfectly fine. These make great little accent pieces. You can use them as trivets. You can use them to, you could set a little candle or a vase on them and use them as sort of like a modern doily. So I got that question especially with the Maui Blossom dishcloth because it is so decorative. But these were 2 round flowers, and once again, like in the circle of triangles, we used the join as you go technique once again to connect all the flowers together into a grid. And I kind of changed my colors up a little bit, and so many of you use such interesting color combinations. So it is really fun to see what you all are making. So keep sharing those photos, folks. But this is the Maui Blossom dishcloth. And then after that, as we were nearing the end of our cowl, we made the Straw Flower Hexagon dishcloth. Now, if you follow the Flux blog, if you've been following it for a while, I use this Straw Flower Hexagon motif quite a bit. It's one that I enjoyed creating years ago, and I've kind of implemented it into different pieces. There's a Straw Flower Hexagon scarf. I've used the Straw Flower Hexagon for some tote bags. So if you Google Flux Straw Flower Hexagon, you can see all the projects with that. I also have a Straw Flower Hexagon square as well. But this one we made into a dishcloth, and I did a rainbow color scheme, as you can see here. And we began with a 1 round flower. You may recognize it from the Playing in the Grass dishcloth. It just has an extra petal on it. And then we used some spike stitches and some post stitches to really push that flower out and make it look 3D. And then we turned it into a classic granny hexagon, but it just has an interesting kind of 3D center. So the Straw Flower Hexagon was next in our lineup. And then most recently, we have created the Super Stitchy dishcloth. This was with 3 colors, and we used alternating front post double crochets and back post double crochets to create this really interesting woven look, and it gives you these really fun kind of pockets of color as each color changes to the next row, and we added a hanging loop onto this one as well. Now, any of these that don't have a hanging loop, on your last row you can simply chain 10, rejoin back into the same stitch with a slip stitch to create that. That's how we did all of the hanging loops for all of our dishcloths. So you can see these 3 have hanging loops, but you could really add them to any of the dishcloths that do not have a hanging loop. And that's a great way to hang it on a little hook to let them dry as well. So the last one was the Super Stitchy dishcloth, and this one was a little bit thicker and kind of more scrubby than some of the other ones. So it's been so much fun to see all of the dishcloths that you have been making. One of the goals I had when I created this crochet along idea was to infuse as much color as possible into this. So I hope that I reached that goal. I had a lot of fun experimenting with different colors, using them together, and also not just using colors side by side, but using stitches together to give an interplay of color. A good example is the color flip dishcloth, how those colors work together and how the stitches kind of fuse the colors together. And this one where we create little pockets of color. This one where we change up the order of the colors. And this one where we do patterns of color. So it's been really fun to use color as a really strong tool to really make an expression with these stitches. The other goal that I had for this crochet along was I tried to also infuse as many techniques as we could into this series. So there were so many stitches that we used and so many different techniques, from learning how to make a classic solid granny square, learning how to make a classic kind of regular granny square, learning how to make granny triangles, learning how to make single crochets, double crochets, half double crochets. We also worked some of our dishcloths in rows. We worked some of our dishcloths in the round as well. We used the join as you go technique in these two dishcloths, whether we did joined granny motifs or we joined flowers. We used the join as you go technique. Some of our dishcloths had borders or edgings on them, so we did that as well. We also learned how to add hanging loops onto our projects, as you can see here. We used the corner to corner technique, so we learned how to do that, and to also switch colors using the join as you go technique. We learned how to hold strands of yarn double to create a different fabric. We also used post stitches. So we used post stitches for this center motif here. We used, those were post stitches around the petals of a flower. And then in this one, we used front post and back post double crochet stitches. For these two dishcloths, we added appliques. So we learned how to stitch appliques onto a project as well. Now, there's probably some other techniques that I'm forgetting or not mentioning, but oh, this is also an example of our granny motifs. So we did granny hexagon, granny square, and granny triangle, and solid granny down here, of course. So there were tons and tons of techniques that we learned. So if you are a beginner crocheter or you were looking to build on your skills a little bit, all of these dishcloths each offered a little bit of crochet techniques, and I tried to mix it up as much as possible so each one of them had a unique look. So to wrap it up, this was one of my favorite crochet alongs I've ever done. This was so much fun. I love all your photos. This was the perfect crochet along for summer because we have been using some really cool cotton yarn. These are all very portable projects. And like I said, these tutorials and videos will be up forever. There's a written pattern for every single one, and there's a video tutorial for every single one. So that is the Summer of Dishcloths Crochet Along recap. I really hope you enjoyed this, and also you can click the link below to get the directory of all of these patterns as well. Be sure and hit that subscribe button also to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. I will see you next time for our fall crochet along. I can't wait to share that with you as well. Thanks, everyone.